Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. All right, welcome in. Wow, it's already in the middle of the week. Where has this week gone? A lot of breaking news as we have a lot going on. Of course, the Olympics. We have this horrible situation unfolding in Arizona. Just people are glued to their TVs and the news story surrounding Nancy Guthrie and her disappearance. A lot of things happening on that last night. Terrifying surveillance photos, videos of an armed person in a ski mask tampering with Nancy Guthrie's home security camera on the morning she vanished. They were released by the FBI yesterday. We'll break down what we know. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick admitted yesterday that he visited the late sex predator Jeffrey Epstein's private island after FBI files debunked his claim that he broke off contact in 2005. America's top-rated restaurant in California was flooded with one-star reviews over its woke message at the bottom of its receipts, calling for an automatic 20% tip to combat what it called the country's racist, ugly past of tipping, kind of like a reparations. And Georgia Democrat Senator John Ossoff, who's up for re-election this year, is taking heavy fire from Republicans back home, not for something he said, but for something he did not say. Got a lot to cover. Let's jump right in.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Terrifying surveillance photos, videos of an armed person in a ski mask just sort of makes cold chills go down your spine seeing what we saw over and over and over with news coverage yesterday afternoon when this broke. Some refer to it as a skin-crawling black and white still footages showing this person, an intruder, an abductor, whatever, as it was pulled from a Nest camera that was mounted by the front door of 84-year-old Nancy's Tucson home. Now, there's a lot to unpack on that alone. I mean, 2 weeks before we were able to see this footage. Now, I thought, well, maybe they've had it and they just released it yesterday because of the timing or something. I don't know. But according to Kash Patel last night on the Sean Hannity show, he claims that the FBI only got access to this yesterday and released it pretty much immediately. So I don't know. The footage marks the first time that law enforcement has released anything about a possible suspect. And I got to ask you, if that was someone that you knew, maybe a family friend, a relative, a spouse, would you be able to recognize them based on just what we were able to see? We could kind of see his eyes. We could see that he seemed to have a dark mustache. But do you think that someone was watching yesterday when that was released and saying, I know who that is? The release also flags the first indication that police are zeroing in on a specific suspect. And maybe they already know who he is. They were just releasing that yesterday to get the public's help in trying to locate him. I don't know. According to reports, Miss Guthrie had numerous Nest cameras around her property, but had not paid her subscription, so feeds from the night she disappeared were not saved to an account, which prompted law enforcement to fear that it was lost forever. But, and this is something that totally unrelated to this case, but you have to think about. Even though she didn't have the account, those cameras were feeding that somewhere in the cloud. And it just kind of makes you pause, doesn't it, to think that you may have a camera and it may not be tied to a service, but it's still recording what you're doing. Somebody is potentially watching that. Does that not kind of send cold chills down your spine too? Of course, after getting that, the FBI specialists were able to pull from them the residual data located on what they call the back end of the system. The footage also appeared to be from a camera that had been taken from Miss Guthrie's home on the night she went missing. Again, it remains unclear exactly what time the clips were taken, but police previously disclosed that her doorbell camera was disconnected around 1:47 a.m. February the 1st. Then at 2:12 a.m., the camera detected a person moving, with police noting that footage had been lost because of her non-subscription. But they got it. Now, of course, we've had all kinds of experts and former investigators, former FBI folks analyzing what we saw. The New York Post wrote, the bizarre way Nancy Guthrie's alleged abductor carried his gun, along with the amateurish way he tried to cover up the Nest camera, all point to an inexperienced thug. This, according to a former FBI agent. With the search for this lady, maybe this is a breakthrough, maybe not. I don't know. Former agent Mark Harrigan told the New York Post, that is a very non-conventional way to carry a firearm, very non-conventional. I don't know what that means. Does it get us any closer to a potential abductor? Maybe, maybe not. The suspect's actions also point, according to Mr. Harrigan, to an unsophisticated operator or operation. Maybe he's not a professional. And who knows? You know, from day one, I have said I'm not so sure this was about a kidnapping as maybe revenge, or maybe it was a robbery gone wrong. Maybe this guy thought he was going to break into a house, get some money, and be out of there, and Miss Guthrie confronted him. The major question that former FBI agent Harrigan has is why it took authorities so long to obtain the video. And I share in that. Again, I don't know why it took so long. It could be the result of, from what the FBI director Patel said, that this was obtained through cooperation with the federal government and Google. Maybe Google resisted initially and didn't want to turn it over. Again, we don't know. There's so much speculation. But can you imagine what the Guthrie family is going through right now? I mean, if you're Savannah Guthrie, and the story is that she has either rented or been loaned a mansion about 20 minutes away, and that she and her brother and sister are staying there out of the media. And I get that. But what do you do? What do you do when your mom is missing and you're waiting to hear from the folks, the kidnappers? You're waiting to hear from the authorities? Oh, and by the way, there was, according to Fox News last night, there was activity in this Bitcoin account. There was like a few $100s that was deposited in there. Now, you know, there's a lot of things that would lead us to think that this was just an amateur. But there's some things that would make you think that they do know a little something about what they're doing. Because as I understand it, some of the emails that have been received have been non-traceable. So somebody had to have the knowledge to send emails. Now, maybe it's totally unrelated, to the kidnapping. The other thing, though, that you have to keep in mind that would lead you to think that maybe it wasn't just totally some thug off the street is the fact that we're into this 2 weeks and we still don't know who it is. We got a glimpse of who it may be yesterday by way of that video, but still, you've done a pretty good job if you've evaded capture for 2 weeks now. That's not some thug off the street, I don't think. But again, we get back to the only thing you and I can do is just pray for the safe return of this poor lady. It's haunting to know what may be happening to her right now or what may have already happened to her. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Love to get your thoughts. Joey Hudson here. You tried keto, paleo, Weight Watchers, intermittent fasting. You lose weight, then it comes right back. You blame yourself, your willpower, your discipline. But here's the truth. It was never about willpower. There's one thing that determines whether your body burns fat or stores it. And if you don't fix that first, every diet will fail. At PhD Weight Loss, they identify that one thing and they build a plan that works with your body, not against it. And if you call now, you're going to get 2 weeks free in the program, and they'll pay for your food so you can finally see real answers without more trial and error. If you've done the yo-yo dieting and want clarity, call PhD Weight Loss now and mention Joey Hudson. No more guessing, just answers. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900. Say Joey Hudson. That's 864-644-1900. Also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Do it once and for all. Lose the weight the right way by calling PhD Weight Loss today. As we continue to watch the Jeffrey Epstein saga unfold, I mean, it has far-reaching tentacles. And the latest possible victim, we learned just this week that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has now admitted under oath that he did, in fact, visit Jeffrey Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Years after Epstein's crimes were public and years after Mr. Lutnick previously claimed he had cut all ties. Now, what does this mean? The admission came during questioning before a Senate subcommittee. This after newly released FBI files directly contradicted Mr. Lutnick's earlier statements. Now, I guess you could make the argument, well, he just got his dates mixed up. I don't know. But with all the scrutiny that the whole Jeffrey Epstein affair has had, don't you think if you knew you had been on his island that you would have made sure you had your story straight? I mean, this is where it gets a little uncomfortable. For years, Mr. Lutnick said 2005 was the end of the relationship. He told reporters he was revolted by Epstein after touring his Manhattan townhouse. The New York Post reporting his words were that disgusting person, meaning Jeffrey Epstein. Said he'd never be in the same room with him again. Except now, the FBI files say otherwise. According to those records, Lutnick has at least 2 encounters after 2005 with this guy. One in 2011, he had drinks. One in 2012, lunch on Epstein's island. The island, the one we all know as ground zero for one of the most disturbing self-trafficking operations in modern history. Lutnick didn't deny it. He confirmed it under oath. He said, we had lunch on the island for an hour. He emphasized it was a family stop, his wife, kids, nannies, a brief visit during a vacation. Says everyone left together, nothing inappropriate, nothing hidden. Why would you go there to begin with, though? Well, why would you take your family to an island owned by this guy? Especially at this point in time, you kind of knew what kind of guy he was, right? That island wasn't just a random vacation spot. By 2012, Epstein had already pleaded guilty in Florida for soliciting a minor, according to the Post. The rumors weren't rumors anymore. They were court records. But yet this guy goes and he takes his family It's not like it was ancient history. This was 7 years after Mr. Lutnick says he cut ties. Now Lutnick insists his memory just evolved. Now, look, I don't know that much about Howard Lutnick other than he is a cabinet member, Commerce Secretary. It's a big deal. But this just doesn't add up, does it? That he was absolutely has nothing to hide, that he wasn't hiding anything, but yet his memory has just evolved. Are you buying that? I'm questioning it. Credibility matters in public office, especially when you're sitting in a cabinet position negotiating trade deals for the United States of America. What am I missing here? Am I being too hard on the guy? Text me. Email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Always remember to use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com, or you can call as well, 800-893-4059. Take advantage of some of those great deals that Mike Lindell has for you. For example, classic MyPillows, regularly $49.98, now only $17.98 with promo code Joey. Turn any mattress into the best mattress ever with made in the USA MyPillow mattress topper. You can save up to $100 just by using my name. Get a set of MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets for as low as $29.98, or the 6-pack towel set for only $39.98. You know that's one of my favorites. So get the very best specials ever at MyPillow.com, or call 800-893-4059. Use promo code Joey. Order now. Your entire order ships absolutely free with promo code Joey. But I want to hear from you. Because, yes, he is a member of the Trump cabinet, and I respect that position. But I got to question his judgment on this one. The FBI files also reference Epstein wanting to meet one of Lutnick's nannies. Lutnick says he had no idea why. Emails suggested potential business or philanthropic overlap, which Lutnick dismisses, saying there may be about 10 emails over 14 years. His defense, he says, is minimal contact, no relationship, no wrongdoing. But again, if you're on the island after you know what kind of guy this is, members of Congress aren't buying it either. Republican Thomas Massie, Democrat Robert Garcia have both called for Mr. Lutnick to resign. That alone kind of tells you how radioactive these files are. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt scolded reporters for focusing on Epstein instead of economic headlines. Falling rents, better mortgage affordability, zero illegal border crossings for 9 straight months. And those are great things to celebrate. She made it clear President Donald Trump fully supports Secretary Lutnick, which makes me hesitate on, being too critical of the guy. But still, it doesn't make sense. History tells us this kind of scandal doesn't always stay contained. There are other examples of bad people doing bad things. And look, the Epstein shadow has ended other careers long before now. And with the FBI dumping massive amounts of unredacted material, that shadow is getting darker and much wider. Members of Congress are now reviewing those files behind closed doors. And according to Ro Khanna and Mr. Massie, at least 6 associates were likely incriminated. I don't know what that means yet. I don't know who they are. Khanna even read names into the congressional record, a move that grants legal immunity. Names like Les Wexner, international businessmen, powerful people most Americans have never heard of. And look, the thing we have to remember is the outrage is bipartisan. This isn't a Democrat versus Republican or Republican versus Democrat. It is growing because almost no one connected to Epstein has been held accountable. Now, this latest, having a Trump cabinet member under question here, of course, is just encouraging Democrats who still want to frame the whole scandal as a Trump problem. Republicans point to Bill Clinton. The truth is uglier than that. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Love to get your thoughts on this. All right, let's move down to Georgia, the Peach State, where Democrat Senator Jon Ossoff, who's running for re-election this year, is taking some heavy fire from Republicans back home. And this is not for something he said, but something he didn't say. So here's the backdrop. January 27th, the Department of Homeland Security announced it had placed an ICE detainer on a Mexican national named Kenneth Moreno Guzman. According to authorities, Guzman allegedly broke into a Georgia family's home, raped an 11-year-old girl, while threatening her 10-year-old sister with a knife in the same room. Now, that's what law enforcement alleges happened. That's the charge. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin did mince words, calling it, quote, another horrific tragedy, and saying this is exactly why ICE exists. And this is what we're seeing all around the country as ICE is rounding up the worst of the worst. People like Kenneth Moreno Guzman to get them out of our country. This is why ICE is there, to identify, remove violent criminal illegal aliens before they can hurt more innocent people. And that's where the controversy begins, because for more than a week after that announcement, after we learned what this animal did to this 11-year-old girl and threatening, holding her 10-year-old sister at knife point, imagine what those two young girls, imagine the memories they're going to have of that for the rest of their lives. And Senator John Ossoff, who is an elected leader, is supposed to be doing things to protect young, innocent girls like these, a frequent and vocal critic of ICE, said nothing publicly. No statement. He didn't tweet anything. No press release acknowledging the crime. Nothing to console the victims or their families. Nothing. Crickets. Now, Fox News Digital found nothing from Ossoff when they did a search until reporters directly asked him about it this week. Only then did the senator respond, saying Americans want ICE focused on arresting violent criminals while also criticizing ICE for raids, checkpoints, and enforcement actions involving children. So he tries to sidestep the issue here. They keep going back to this young boy in Minneapolis and his dad, where they try to keep the narrative alive that they separated his dad. When the full story is his mom was in the house. You remember this young Hispanic boy that we've seen the image on the doorsteps as his dad was being hauled off. His mom was in the house, wouldn't come to the door. And his dad, reportedly, is the one who wanted them to bring the young boy somewhere that he would be cared for. Now, here's the political problem for Mr. Ossoff. He can't spend years criticizing ICE. You can't amplify stories condemning immigration enforcement. You can't stay silent when ICE stops a man accused of raping a child and then expect voters not to notice. Love to hear some of our friends in Georgia. What do you think about this? Republicans noticed, and they pounced. Former Tennessee football coach Derek Dooley, now running in the Republican primary, accused Ossoff of utter silence, saying it mirrors what he calls Ossoff's silence when the Biden administration opened the southern border. He has a point. I don't recall Senator Ossoff having much to say about Joe Biden literally throwing the doors open. Congressman Mike Collins went even further. He's accused Senator Ossoff of failing to stand up to liberal donors in New York and California, saying that every day Ossoff remains in office is the day these criminals have a friend in Washington. How do you explain that to your constituents back home? Then there's Congressman Buddy Carter, who made perhaps the most explosive claim, accusing Senator Ossoff of being silent not just on this case, but also on the murder of Laken Riley, another case Republicans have repeatedly cited in this immigration debate. Wonder what Laken Riley's family thinks of John Ossoff. He doesn't want to talk about it, though. Congressman Carter argued that Ossoff wants illegal immigrants to vote for him and therefore refuses to speak out forcefully against crimes committed by those who are here illegally. Now, one thing that I just learned, even though Ossoff is critical of what ICE is doing, before you can go to an Ossoff campaign event, you got to show some form of ID to get in. Voter ID required for campaign events. Republicans down the ballot are echoing a very similar message. District Attorney Clay Fuller, now running for Congress, asked how many more Americans must be raped or killed before Jon Ossoff stands up for what he called his radical base, even suggesting the death penalty should be pursued in this particular case. Georgia Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, who's running for governor, warned voters that no matter how many crimes are committed by illegal immigrants, Jon Ossoff will, quote, remain silent and continue pushing policies they say enable the problem. Look, whether you're pushing policies that are enabling this or not, by doing nothing, you're basically condoning it, right? If you're not standing up, speaking out, trying to get something done, because, look, Ossoff is one of the ones who is trying to hold the U.S. government hostage by trying to take DHS funding away and potentially causing another shutdown. Jon Ossoff has voted along with his Democrat Party to keep funding from ICE. Now, to be fair, Mr. Ossoff has addressed immigration violence before. He just hasn't been very consistent in public forums. He honored Laken Riley inside the Georgia legislature days after her murder. He later voted for the Laken Riley Act. I'll have to give him credit for that, though Republicans point out that he initially voted against a procedural motion tied to the bill before eventually supporting it months later. But he did vote for it. So we have to give credit where credit is due. But he still has fought tooth and nail, done everything in his power to try to keep ICE from doing their job. And yes, he voted for the Laken Riley Act. That's where the flip-flop accusation comes from. This is the challenge Ossoff faces politically. In an election year, you got to be very clear with what you want to do. Voters don't really understand procedural votes. They don't track Senate calendars. They notice patterns of how you vote, how consistently you vote for these type of issues. And I hope Mr. Ossoff was paying attention in 2024 when the American people sent a very loud message. We want our border closed. Donald Trump has accomplished that. We want illegals deported. We want the worst of the worst. We want these people, these rapists, these murderers, these robbers, these people who break the law to get into our country and then break the law again, assaulting our people. We want them out of the country. Jon Ossoff doesn't seem to understand that. And the pattern Republicans are arguing is this. When immigration enforcement goes wrong, Ossoff speaks out very loudly. He wants to be in front of the cameras. He's got a press release. He's got a statement. When immigration enforcement prevents a violent criminal from slipping through the cracks, crickets, silence, quiet. Unless the press asks him specifically. That argument's going to be front and center in this race. And make no mistake, this Georgia Senate contest matters nationally. Republicans hold, of course, a 53-47 majority in the U.S. Senate. Georgia is one of the most closely watched battlegrounds in the country. Jon Ossoff should have never been elected to begin with, but he was. But we're expecting our friends in Georgia to right the ship. Every word, every silence, every vote that he has taken in these past 6 years is going to be scrutinized. And we just got to hope that the people in Georgia, and I believe they will. I talked to a lot of people in Georgia. We got to hope that they stand up and they send a loud and clear message, not only to Jon Ossoff, but Democrats all around the country, that we are going to take our country back. We're not going to allow people like you to allow these illegals to roam our cities and our counties and our states. For Mr. Ossoff, the question voters will be asking is simple. When a child is victimized, when ICE does exactly what it's supposed to do, when Georgians want reassurance that their leaders put victims first, Do they hear from their senator, or do they hear excuses? That question may end up deciding this race, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking for as the 2026 midterms unfold. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. All right, let's talk about a story that kind of captures where our country is right now. Cultural wars, cancel mobs, Yelp reviews, and a receipt that turned into a political manifesto. Here's the story. It comes out of California, where Burdell, a Michelin-recognized soul food restaurant in Oakland, California, recently found itself at the center of a national firestorm. Not because of bad food, not because of dirty kitchens, and certainly not because of poor service, but because of what it printed at the bottom of its receipt. Burdell was just named America's best restaurant by Food and Wine magazine, and that's a big deal. Top rated, highly reviewed, packed tables, hard to get in, nationally acclaimed. And then boom, a Reddit post goes viral pointing out a message printed on customer receipts explaining that tipping in America has an ugly past tied to racism, and the restaurant now automatically adds a 20% service charge to combat that history. Basically, California loves reparations and the idea of reparations. Basically, this restaurant is instituting its own reparations. Now, let me read this slowly because this is what set people off. Tipping in the U.S. has an ugly past, allowing the continuation of underpaid labor. We don't like that history. Included on your check is a 20% service charge, which we use to pay hourly staff a consistent and livable wage, not dependent on archaic tipping customs or chance. Now, let me translate that for you. You're not just paying for dinner, you're getting a lecture. And who wants that after you've just enjoyed a good meal? Because for all the reviews, they serve good food. Now, look, we can have an honest conversation about wages, about tipping culture, about restaurant economics. Reasonable people can disagree on whether service charges are better than tips. Plenty of restaurants do it. But here's the problem as I see it. Customers didn't just feel charged. They felt preached to. They felt like this was forced on them. And once that message went viral, the backlash was huge. Burdell's Yelp page was flooded with one-star reviews. Some accused the restaurant of hiding the service charge. Others slammed the food. Some were clearly political drive-bys from people who've never set foot in Oakland, California, but they wanted to get in on the conversation. Yelp eventually stepped in and started monitoring the page, acknowledging that this had crossed into activism-driven review bombing. Kind of like the liberal activists do in the woke culture, but they typically do it to a conservative group. The owner and chef, Jeff Davis, responded by kind of shrugging it off. He said most of the negative reviewers weren't even local, that they were outsiders using this as a crusade against Oakland, DEI, and the moment we're in. And that phrase right there, the moment we're in, kind of tells you something, doesn't it? Because this isn't really about tipping. This is about the growing frustration Americans feel when everything becomes political. You can't grab dinner anymore without being reminded that you're complicit in some historical injustice. You can't order fried chicken without a sociology lecture stapled to your receipt. And Americans are just tired of it. They're just simply tired of it. Now, to be fair, the restaurant says the service charge is disclosed in advance. They say it's on the menu. They say other Bay Area restaurants charge even more. And maybe that's true. I don't know. But if you go into a restaurant and you sit down and you're looking at the menu to order, are you going to get up and walk out when you see there's a service charge? Maybe some people do. I certainly, if I saw that message before I had dinner, I would walk out. Here's the reality. Perception matters. When customers feel blindsided, when they feel talked down to, when they feel like they're being morally evaluated and judged for just having dinner out, they react. Sometimes poorly, sometimes unfairly, sometimes irrational, but they do react, and particularly in today's time. And what we're watching here is the collision of two modern forces, corporate activism and consumer backlash. The chef also addressed accusations that earlier praise for the restaurant was only because it's black-owned, accusations he called racist and offensive. And here's what he said. He said, as Americans, we have to understand that racism is part of our core identity as a country. So you kind of see what kind of guy he is. He's an activist, which would give me reason to never set foot in his restaurant. I don't care how good the food is. That statement alone probably tells you why this message hit the receipt in the first place, because there's a growing belief among cultural elites that America must constantly apologize for itself, even when you're ordering dinner. Here's the counterpoint, and it's one a lot of Americans quietly share. We're not responsible for everything that happened 150 years ago. In fact, how can we be responsible? How can I, as a 65-year-old white man, be responsible for something that happened in South Carolina? There were slaves in South Carolina 150 years ago. We're not the villains here. We're not bad people because we simply don't want to be forced to pay a tip, particularly in this situation when we know that it's like a penalty. We're certainly not obligated to accept being scolded while paying $38 for short ribs. It also exposes something else, the fragility of the best of culture. One minute you're America's top restaurant, the next minute you're fighting for your Yelp life because people now have a voice. You can do this online. And I don't care what the owner says, those Yelp reviews hurt the business. They make people think twice about going there, particularly if you're from out of town and you're looking for a good place to dine while you're visiting Oakland. It shows how social media from both sides can really bring people to be accountable for what they do and what they say. Review bombing is childish, and we see it happen, again, on both sides. Nasty emails are unacceptable, but businesses have to understand when you inject ideology into your business, into commerce, you invite response. It's not cancel culture, it's the consequences of what you're saying. And here's where conservatives have a strong argument. If a restaurant wants to add a 20% service charge, fine. Tell us up front. If they want to pay a livable wage, God bless them. Go up on your price. If they want to eliminate tipping, go for that too. But don't moralize it. Don't weaponize history. Don't turn dinner into a DEI seminar, and don't make your customers feel like they're responsible for things that happened a long, long time ago. Because the customer didn't come for that. The customer came for dinner. They're hungry. They want some good food. And when people feel like they're being guilted instead of served, they push back. Sometimes with their wallet, sometimes with their keyboards, but they do push back. And again, this story really isn't necessarily about Burdell, although they got the ball rolling. But it's about a country that is exhausted by constant moral confrontation. We see it in sports. We see it in movies. We see it in schools. We see it in corporate HR trainings. And now we're beginning to see it on restaurant receipts. And at some point, Americans are just saying enough is enough. Just let me eat. Let me tip what I want. If you give me good service, you give me good food, then maybe I tip 20% and I don't have to be told to. Let me decide what I believe without being nudged, shamed, or charged for it, what I believe the tip is deserved. It doesn't make someone a racist. It just makes them a normal American. And if restaurants want to survive in a competitive market, especially one as unforgiving as California, they may want to remember that goodwill is just as important as good food. You can get a reputation real quick and people are not going to come see you. Because in the age of social media, you're always one receipt away from a national controversy, and Burdell's figured that out. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.